They are not only papers or old pictures. They are the living memory of our past and a permanent legacy for the future. Most of the families have all documents stored in some place in the house. In general, and by different reasons, they were not conserved in the best conditions. 60 or 70% of all documents were stored for years in a basement or in an attic. These are the worst places to preserve them. The three most important enemies for preservation are light, temperature, and humidity. Until approximately half of 19th century, papers were handmade in mills with vegetable fibers, especially linen and cotton. At that time, paper was expensive, and it was not as popular as it is today. Although today, we still have papers made with linen and cotton, as for example, this one. Near 1840, linen became scarce due to agricultural problems, which led to search new ways of production. And then was developed a new process of paper making from pulping wood obtained from the trees, the cellulose. The cellulose is a fiber residue of the trees. In 1870, in the treatment of cellulose fibers, they started to use acids like sulfuric acid or acetic acid. The bleach was made with chlorine acids. The presence of all these acids in all documents provokes a reaction at temperature, humidity, and light, creating undesirable chemical reactions like yellowish pages, paper's degradation, and biological processes like apparition of funguses, mild, and infestation of several kinds of insects. Well, we have to say that the conditions of preservation of our grandparents or great-grandparents were not the best conditions for preservation at all, because with no air conditioning, reducing the hot weather with fans, and with all the possible variation of humidity, well, but however, they had very good ventilation in their houses. They had long hallways and huge windows, and the air from outside was always connected with the interior. Now, what did we do? We made those huge buildings, towers, sealed, closed places, really beehives with no ventilation at all, in which everything depends on the air conditioning. What we need to control in preservation is the relative humidity. What is what we call relative humidity? Each air molecule is composed of gases. 78% of nitrogen, 21% of oxygen, and 1% of other gases, plus water vapor. Relative humidity is the percentage of water vapor in relation to the total mix of gases and water in the air. An environment with hot temperature tends to be more humid. Water drops stationed in floors, walls, or ceilings tend to evaporate into the air. But low temperatures are not a guarantee for reduction of humidity. At low temperatures, the water vapor is condensed and the molecules return to their liquid form. In places with little ventilation, humidity is of course more condensed. Humidity is filtered by water pipelines, aquifers, groundwater, and is absorbed by the foundations by capillarization. But then, what happens with the humidity and our old documents? Humidity, it means water vapor condensed in the air, initiates a biological chain, which is a real disaster for documents. The dust accumulated in humid sections is a breeding ground and food for funguses, and then spores settle in the paper surface and start to reproduce. Moreover, these funguses will be an attractive food for insects and bacteria. When advanced, this process is a real depredation. Papers with mold become weak, brittle, and with yellow or brown drops in its surface. After that, they start a huge degradation, breaking and losing fragments of their sheets. On the other hand, lack of humidity is also dangerous. It produces brittle and fragile sheets of paper. Humidity is measured using a hygrometer. These devices are used for measuring the moisture content in the environment. A controlled humidity between 30 and 50% is the best standard for preservation, with the less possible variation and the maximum of stability, because variations of humidity provoke more damages than stable low or medium range. Light has also a huge impact on documents preservation. The most dangerous light, which is not visible to the human eye, is the ultraviolet UV, the light from sun rays. Acids in papers show a very fast reaction to UV radiation, being this reaction devastating for documents. When environments are exposed to the daylight, it should be installed curtains with UV filters. Fluorescent and halogen lights are also not recommended for preservation and should be avoided. Measured in lumens per square meter, 50 lux per day is the adequate amount of light for preservation. The lux is the unit of luminance, 1 lumen per square meter, and it's very used by photographers. How can we know if we have a room illuminated at 50 lux? Well, to get an idea, it's a family living room comfortable standard illumination. Temperature is a very important value to be controlled in preservation. The lower is the temperature, the better is for preservation. Photos, in general, are well preserved at very low temperatures. To make a comfortable standard for human beings in houses or public places, and to hold an adequate standard for documents, a range between 55 and 70 degrees is appropriate. In conclusion, the best conditions for preservation of all documents are a soft illumination of about 50 lux, a humidity between 30 and 50% with a stable range, and a temperature between 55 and 70 degrees. The AIC Code of Ethics and Guidelines for Practice is one of the most important international codes for professional conservation. It says that professional conservation should strive to attain the highest possible standards in all aspects of conservation, including, but not limited to, preventive conservation, examination, documentation, treatment, research, and education. One of the main principles of ethics is the rule of reversibility. No procedure or treatment should be undertaken that cannot later be undone. For example, lamination is an irreversible procedure. Lamination encloses acids in the wrapping, not allowing proper ventilation, increasing hot temperatures in the surface of papers. First of all, This is one of the most important precautions we need to take care when we pick up documents with our hands. Grease from fingers accumulated in papers generates more destructive acids. Well, they never have to be stored in a basement or in an attic, and never have to be laminated, as we already said. Binding helps conservation, provided that covers would be acid-free cardboards or papers. We can find this kind of papers in bookstores or computer stores. Plastic covers can be used to protect documents, but only those made of polyester, polypropylene, or polyethylene. PVC, polyvinyl chloride, is dangerous because it produces permanent emissions of hydrochloric acid. Never staple with these clips your documents. Rolled papers must be unwrapped carefully, leaving them some hours in a high humidity environment to make them more flexible in the moment they are unwrapped and to prevent them from cracking. All family photos may be stored in plastic protectors with pockets, taking care that they are made of acid-free components.